Good morning, everybody. Today we'll be starting the second session for the third semester Sanskrit students of Bangalore University and Bangalore North University. We are teaching Champu Ramayana of Bhoja. As I told you in the last class, there are different portions of Champu Ramayana chosen for the students of third semester. Among them, for BCom students, it is Aranyakanda. For BA BSc, it is Sundarakanda. For BBA, it is Balakanda. And BCA, it is Ayodhyakanda. So today, let us look at the origin and development of Champu Kavyas. Champu Kavyasya Ugamaha Tata Vikasam Cha. So this will be the main theme of this particular session. So before we start, let us look at what we have learned in the previous class. Gata Patanam Saramshaha. So the things that we learned in the last class are Vaidika Sahityam Tata Laukika Sahityasya Parichayaha. We learned about the Vedic literature and also about the Laukika. Laukika is that common man's literature, as I told you. And we also learnt about the Vedas and the Vedangas, the different Vedas, the Rigveda, Yajus, Sama and Atharva Veda, and also about the 6 Vedangas, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Chandas, Jyotisha and Nirukta. And then we also learnt about the Darshanas and also about the Shastra, different Shastras, the Vyakarana Shastra, and then Dharma Shastra and all those things. And we also mentioned about the Darshanas, the different schools of philosophy, Nastika and Astika Darshanas. And later we discussed about the Itihasa and Puranas. Itihasas are Ramayana and Mahabharata, and there are 18 Puranas. So all these belong to an earlier period. So then came the classical Sanskrit literature, in which we come across the Kavyas. So when we started discussing about the classical Sanskrit literature, we mentioned about Kavya Lakshanas and Kavya Vedas. Kavya Vedas are the classification of Kavyas, like how the whole of classical Sanskrit literature is divided into Shravya and Drishya Kavya, and then among the Shravya Kavyas there is Gadya, Padya and Champu literature, and in the Drishya Kavya there is the dramas and other things which can be Drishya, that is seen. So these are the things that we learned in the last class. So in this session, as I told you, we'll be learning about the origin and development of Champu Kavyas. So the purpose of this particular session is to understand how the Champu literature emerged in Sanskrit literature, how it developed, and what are the important features of Champu literature. And at the end of the class, we should be able to gain greater knowledge about what Champu Kavyas are and what is the place of Champu Kavyas in the history of literature. So to begin with, let us think about, or let us discuss about the etymology of the word Champu. Champu is derived from the root Champu. Champ. Champ is to go, to move. Okay, there's nothing very specific related to Champu through the root. The other derivations are Chapasantwane, to console. And as you know, all Kavya is supposed to bring some kind of a peace and consolation to the mind. So in the same way, even Champu Kavya brings solace to the mind. Champayati iti champu chapi gatyam. So it is more about the movement or the change of position. I don't know for what reason that particular etymology is chosen for champu, but yeah, it is so. Chaha parikalpane. Also, parikalpana is to imagine. It is also related to the imagination. Chamatkritya punati vismayikritya prasadayati iti champu. So there is a vyakyana, there is a definition given by the poeticians about what champu means. Chamatkritya punati. Because whenever there is poetry, there is chamatkara. Chamatkara is nothing but bangi baniti. To whatever we want to say it very beautifully. Kavya is meant for saying things in a very beautiful way. And also, Vismayi Kritya Prasadayati. It pleases your mind in a magical way. Any poetry for that matter, it pleases the mind in a very surprising way. We don't know how that has happened, but when we read a book, when we read a Kavya, when we listen to a story, our mind is suddenly delighted. Okay? It soothes or cheers up one wonderfully. So that is how it has been described. It's said by Haridasa Bhattacharya. This is the kind of definition given by Haridasa Bhattacharya. Also, in the Kannada scholars say that champu originated from Kannada also. Like there are Kannada words which are very similar to the word champu. Something like impu, sompu, kampu, and all those things. Okay, so they can be rhyming words for champu. So Champu Kavyasya Lakshanam. Let us see what are the salient features of Champu Kavyas. So as I told you in the last class, Champu is a combination of Gadya and Padya literature. So it is Gadya Padyamayi Kachit Champuritya Vidiyate. A combination of Gadya and Padya is called Champu literature. So it is described in Kavyadasha of Dandi, who wrote it in 7th century AD. He says that Gadya Padyamayi. Champu has both Gadya and Padya, prose and poetry. Gadya Padyamayi Kachit Champu Ritya Vidiyate. It is known as Champu. Whatever is a mixture of both prose and poetry is known as Champu. Gadya Padyamayam Kavyam Champu Ritya Vidiyate. Sahitya Darpanam Vishwanatha. So that is also another poetician by name Vishwanatha, who also describes Champu as a combination of both prose and poetry. And there is one more, Gadya Padyamayi Sanka Sochvasa Champu. There's a poetician called Hemachandra who says not only that it is a mixture of Gadya and Padya, but it has Ankas and also maybe Uchvasa. The chapters are called as Uchvasas. Okay, so different types of descriptions about Champu. So there are many poems or many poets who have praised Champu literature because Champu is a very beautiful composition. Gadyanubandha rasamishhrita padya suktihi hrudyahi vadya kalaya kaliteva kitihi. So there is a very beautiful saying that this Champu literature is a combination of Gadya and Padya. Gadyanubandha rasamishhrita padya sukti, because Padya literature always consists of rasa. Okay, Gadya is known for the bandha. Bandha is the combination of words, the joining of words together, making it into samasas and weaving it into a beautiful tapestry. Okay, that is called Gadya. So there is that beauty of Gadya as well as the beauty of Padya added into the Champu. And therefore, Hrudya, it becomes very pleasing, it's very attractive. Okay, like Kavya Kalaya Kaliteva Gitihi. Like, Gitihi. Gitihi is a song. Okay, Vadya Kalaya Kaliteva Giti. If there are instruments and if somebody is singing, it's really beautiful. It is beautiful when somebody sings or when somebody plays on the instruments, but when there's a combination of both, it's much more beautiful. So such is the composition of Champu literature. That's what is said by Bhoja himself in the Champu Ramayana. Okay, he says it is like the music, okay, which is also associated with the instruments. Such is the beauty of Champu literature. Sangaha kasyahi na swadeta manase madvika mrudvikayoho. So there is also another appreciation of Champu literature done by Venkatadvari, who is the author of Vishwagunadarsha Champu. So he says the blend of prose and verse is like the blend of honey and grapes. Madvika mrudvikayoho. Okay, it is honey and grape together, because honey is also sweet. The grapes are a little sour, but then they are also sweet. So if you put the grapes into the honey, it tastes really good. So Champu is like a combination of grape along with the honey. That is what Venkatadvari says about the Champu literature. And also, uh, we can see that there is a growth, a development of Champu Kavyas. Okay, in the initially there was more and more of Mahakavyas and Champu Mahakavyas and Kandakavyas coming, and then there was also Banabhatta and then Dandi and many other people who wrote Gadya Kavyas. But slowly there was another form of literature, that is Champu literature, which came into existence, and the poets started liking it so much. There was more and more of Champu literature being composed. So it is said that prose is conveying our thoughts. Moments of exaltation may find expression in the form of verse. Verse has the power of appealing on account of its rhythms and melody. A mingling of verse and prose will provide an embellishment and enables the Sahradaya to enjoy the composition heartily. Because see, there is both, best of the two worlds you can get in the Champu literature. Because there's a beauty in Gadya, there is another kind of beauty in the Kavya, that is poetry. So when you read Champu, you can enjoy both the beauty of the Padya as well as the Gadya. And also, when it is poetry, obviously there is rasa. Realization of rasa will be more quick and with the mingling of prose and verse. Okay, that is the reason why the poets chose Champo, because they can switch between the two forms. They can write poetry whenever they want to be, expressing certain things in a very crisp and poetic way. And later on, when they want to describe something elaborately, and when they want to show the jugglery of words and the images and the beauty of the alankaras and other things, they can use the prose. So in this way, the poets have the privilege of switching between the two types of compositions, that is poetry and the prose. That is why they chose Champu form of composition. The combination of both will enable the reader to peep into the merit of the author in respect of both. So the readers can understand how best a poet is in Gadya and Padya. A happy blend of the two will overcome monotony, so that we would otherwise be felt either by mere prose or poetry. See, when we read poetry, after a while it becomes monotonous. So even Gadya Kavya for that matter, it becomes like, oh, I wish there was some change. So Champu literature gives that possibility. Okay, when you're reading Gadya, when you really feel, okay, it's a lot, like, it is a long paragraph. I want to read something crisp and quick and very juicy and rasavat. Then suddenly there comes a shloka. So Champu provides that opportunity to break that monotony and give a small glimpse of poetry here and there. And when you're continuously reading poetry, suddenly there comes a piece of prose, and it's a very beautiful blend of both. The verse gives the aesthetic pleasure and includes easy receptivity. This facility is lacking in prose. Thus, what prose alone cannot achieve is done by the effective blend of both prose and poetry. Alright, so this is the reason why there was growth of Champu Kavyas. Also, there are other reasons, like the prose and verse form of composition figures in the Vedic Akhyana. So, this Champu literature, Champu form is not new to us. We have seen in Vedic compositions there are, compositions like there are hymns, there is conversation, there is a small Gadya paragraph. This is there in the Vedic literature also. So maybe the poets were fascinated by that convenience. The Rig Veda contain hymns of narrative character also. In the Brahmana literature also, there occur short legends in prose verse called gathas. Okay, Mahabharata and Puranas contain prose portions here and there. The Buddhist Jataka stories are now handed down as a commentary called Jataka Tattva, and with prose narration added to the verse. Even in Jain literature, you have something like that. So these are some of the reasons why Champu literature grew faster and in a very nice way. So there is also an epigraphical evidence of Champu literature being there in the Ahmedabad stone pillar inscription of Samudragupta, scribed by Harisena in 330, between 330 and 75 AD. So there is a picture of that inscription which you can see on the PowerPoint presentation. You can go through that sometime. So there are, in Kannada literature also, there are many examples of Champu literature. The Adi Purana and Vikramarjuna Vijayam, two Champu kavyas written in Kannada by Pampa Mahakavi. They are the best examples of Champu literature. And as I told you, the main feature of Champu kavyas is that it has a good happy blend of prose and poetry. The story part is relatively short. The theme is generally known from the epics and the Puranas. See, usually for any poetry initially, when Sanskrit literature was being composed, most of the themes were taken from the epics and Puranas, but there are also creative works like Banas Kadambari or the Shakumar Charita. There was also the Katha Sarit Sagara, okay, and also the Brihat Katha, which were all sources of narratives for classical Sanskrit literature. The Champu is of a narrative character. Tender ideas are expressed in verses. So whatever we have said, so it's just a repetition of whatever we have tried to tell you earlier. So to conclude today's class, let us say that it can be deemed that the inscription of Samudragupta marks the beginning of Champu style in 4th century AD. It might have taken some centuries for the style to become popular. When the 7th century AD, Dandi defines Champu as recognized as a variety of kavya. The earliest full-fledged extant Champu is Nalachampu of Trivikrama Bhatta. So you are going to read in this semester Champu Ramayana, a part of Champu Ramayana. Okay, so there you will be able to understand what it means by all these descriptions. Okay, so today we shall come to the end of this class by uh, looking at the questions here. There are 5 questions, multiple choice questions, which you will have to answer after the class, and please upload the answers in the website. Okay, so let us end the class today, this session. Thank you very much for being a good listener, and try to revise whatever is done, and let us get back in the next session. Thank you very much.